Good evening. So it's time for the Cancer Men Supporting Men Support Group. Once again, we haven't had one for a little while. My name is Emmanuel Peterson. I'm the host of the support group, and I just want to welcome anyone watching to tonight's meeting. And yeah, it's just absolutely phenomenal to have this platform, to have people sharing their journeys and people actually getting the support that they need. Whether you're going through a new cancer journey or whether you've been running this journey for a little while, we just want to welcome you here. And tonight's session is being recorded so that we can share it with more people. So just once we share it, please share it with all your friends. If you know of someone else that might be going through a tough time at the moment, share it with them and invite them to the next one. So tonight we have a very special guest, and it's really incredible when you get someone like this person sharing their journey with everyone. And obviously, towards the end of the night, we will open it up to questions and answers to all the members tonight. But the person in question is Alistair Koenig, who's 49 years old, diagnosed with multiple myeloma in March this year, which is still quite a new journey. He owns and runs a couple of coffee shops and enjoys surfing and being outdoors. Now, who doesn't enjoy that? I miss the coast. I grew up in the coast there in KZN and now stuck in Gauteng. He believes staying strong and staying as healthy as possible to support his body through this journey is vital. So, with no further ado, Alistair, welcome to the Men Supporting Men support group brought to us and supported by Hollard Daredevil Run. Welcome.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so Alistair, I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm gonna open the floor up for you to share your journey, and then towards the end, like I said, we'll open up to questions and answers, and I might actually have a couple of questions as well. So the floor is yours.
Right, thanks. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, absolutely. So, I've got like you said, a couple of coffee shops. Love surfing, very active lifestyle. In about 2019 or so, I started feeling a little, I don't know, like I guess a little more tired than normal. I didn't think too much of it. I was like, look, I think at that point I was about 46 or so. Like I'm getting a little bit older. It might be that. Maybe I just need to, drink less beer or something like that. So I didn't think too much of it. 2020 came along, and then I went through a couple of surgeries as well, and I had all of the stress that come with COVID. Obviously, running a coffee shop in that period, it was really detrimental to our business. And I had like quite a lot of, I guess, stress going on. And almost directly after that whole COVID thing happened, I started getting hit with this heavy fatigue and just this flipping, like these infections that just seem to always just be kind of like there. And I attributed to eventually I thought I had long COVID because I was like, this is almost like what everyone's talking about. Like I can't, like I'm always tired. I've always got my nose always seems a bit blocked or my throat's a bit sore. And I was just permanently really worried that I was going to give somebody COVID because I always thought that I had, it always seemed like I had some bloody infection on the go. Anyway, I was going through to chat to the doctor, get various blood tests. Everything was coming up as being completely within range. Maybe, there was one thing that was slightly out of range or so. Now in retrospect, looking at it, I guess, it's easy to always look at stuff in hindsight, but everything looked pretty much above board. And I just sort of became accustomed to feeling a little bit shitty, and I'm sure that's probably something a lot of people can identify on this whole journey is just like, you don't quite know what's wrong, something's wrong, and you just kind of, it's like this frog in the hot water where eventually you boil that frog, the frog eventually boils, but he doesn't realize it. And I think it's a little bit of that sort of thing happening. And I bounced around from one doctor to the next, and nobody seemed able to diagnose what it was. And eventually, I just kind of, I guess, I gave up a little bit on doctors, and I just thought I'm just going to figure this out myself. And I started trying all sorts of weird and wonderful things to try and get this thing to work. And ultimately, some stuff seemed to work and some stuff didn't seem to work. Fast forward up to the end of 2022, and I got a massive ear infection, and I took a big dose of antibiotics to kind of clear it up. And after that, I started feeling really bad, to the point where I was looking as I was. Normally I try to walk up steps if I can, and I was just like, oh man, I'm taking the elevator now, like the escalators instead of walking. I started to stand on the escalators, and it became almost like, and I just figured that I was doing, like I say, all these weird things. And I was like, oh, it's just the detox, it's fine. Anyway, then I started getting this really acute pain in my back, really acute, to the point where I started having these thoughts on like, geez, this is like, if this is what my life is going to be like going forward, I'm not sure it's worth living. It was like really quite sore. Anyway, so I went to go and see my physio, and then normally she sorts me out in quite a short space of time, and it seemed worse after seeing the physio. And she talked me into going and getting an X-ray, and I was like, look, there's nothing is coming out of this X-ray. I'm sure. And I went to go and have a look at this X-ray, and I had 3 spinal compressions in my spine, between my shoulders, and then down sort of in my lower back. She said, go and see an orthopedic surgeon. I booked an appointment and the guy was very busy. He could only see me in a month. Very fortunately for me, my brother-in-law is a physio, and he actually knew this orthopedic surgeon. And he said, like, look, will you please just have a look at the X-rays? And the surgeon had a look at that. Then I got a call from his receptionist saying, listen, can you come in right now? And the guy's got a month waiting list, and he wants to see you immediately. There's no good news coming out of that. Anyway, so I went through to the hospital, and what they said to me is like, we need to then like to admit you. And I was like, look, I mean, what are we talking about? Why we, I don't feel that bad. I'm a little bit fatigued and all of that. And they were like, no, well, we need to do all these tests and what have you. And I kind of got the sense that they weren't telling me everything, that they weren't giving me all of their suspicions, but they looked very concerned. And the next thing I knew, I was on a drip and had been admitted to hospital. And I thought that what I thought would be a one-day trip. So how they sold it to me to get me to actually go in there was, we need to run all these expensive tests and your medical aid will cover. And I was like, okay, well, that seems fine. Let's do that. I'm sure I'll be out tomorrow. And then, the next thing I was on the strip and getting transfused with blood. And eventually there's also, like with this particular type of cancer, there's a electrophoresis test that takes a number of days for the results to come out. So we sent that test out on Friday, but we had to go through the weekend. Then come about Tuesday or so, the rheumatologist who was dealing with me then, she had at that point figured out what it was, and she came over and she said, like, listen, you've got something called multiple myeloma. And I was like, oof, that doesn't sound good. And that sounds extremely like it's got cancer in it. It sounds like cancer is, myeloma and leukemia, and that I guess all sound kind of similar. And she said, yeah, it's a type of cancer, and this is the way forward. And I was, anyone who's had that diagnosis knows that it is tough, man. When they tell you that when you get told that you got cancer, it's tough news to take. I also had a guy in my ward over there who had one of his family members that had myeloma. And at that point, he's like, he was also a bit of a funny guy. He looks over to me and he's like, yo, dude, you are super fucked. He's like, it's like really, really, excuse my language. He's like, this is really bad. And I was just like, at that point, I'm trying to process all of the stuff that I've told. I'm just like, listen, Jimmy, do you mind? Can we just not have this conversation right now? Anyway, so then, and I'd kind of had a sense that, at that point, I hadn't told, I told my sister that I was in hospital and some of my friends, but I hadn't told my mom because I didn't want her to worry. My father actually also died at age 49. He also died of cancer when, so I was trying to, I guess, hold the news back from my mom until I actually knew what it was. So, and also breaking that news is, man, it's not, like you just don't, like it's hard news to take on yourself. It's also extremely hard to then go and tell your friends and family that you've got a potentially fatal disease, and actually telling my mom was the most difficult part, I think, of that whole process was actually, just calling her and, like I remember just, I was crying and just saying like, listen, like I've got cancer and, it's also the last thing that any parent wants to hear is that, that their child has cancer and has a potential of dying, anyway, I guess we just get through it, so I told her, and we were like, listen, we're going to figure this out, like we're not going to be victims in this case. We're going to look at what what benefit I can get from this whole process. And I was always very clear right from when I knew that this whole cancer thing was there. I was like, I'm not going to do a why me thing. I'm going to figure out a way where I can get some meaning out of this whole thing. Anyway, I then got transferred off to to CANSA Men with my current oncologist, and we started a treatment then on the myeloma chemotherapy, and it's basically a couple of different types of chemotherapy and steroids. Interestingly enough, the longer I stayed in hospital, the worse I started feeling. I didn't feel that bad coming in. When I got out of hospital, I could hardly walk about 10 meters without having to stop. I mean, I was sleeping about 18 hours a day. My 3 spinal fractures turned into 7 spinal fractures. I lost 7 centimeters in height. Kidneys were extremely close to failure. I had I think 20% function on kidneys, which eventually, fortunately they came back quite quick. And at one point I thought, hey man, I might, I might be checking out over here, and it was quite scary. It was quite scary. And all of this stuff just was happening all around me. I was very fortunate in that I had a very supportive family who, I went to go and stay with my sister. I was busy moving apartments as well. They did all of that for me. I just basically lay in bed and would eat food from when they brought food out. I'd eat it and just try to do as good as I could to keep the businesses going while I could, and figure out, then there's all this medical aid stuff and how you're going to get treatment and who and how and where and all of that sort of stuff. That was quite a lot to deal with. We started treatment. The actual chemotherapy treatment then started the following week. And I always had in my head, I was petrified of this whole idea of taking medication not specifically in general, but also chemotherapy as a thing. I was just like, I don't want to take it. And I had this thing in my head, maybe I'm going to do a natural, if I get cancer, maybe I'll do the natural course. But I think at this point, I surprised myself in that there wasn't really a decision for me as to whether to do conventional or alternative. I was like, if you've got something that's effective, that's going to work, I'm going to take it because I want to give myself the best chance to survive this thing. So I had to get my head around the idea of chemotherapy being poisonous and try to interpret it as being a healing medicine that I was going to take, as opposed to something that was going to damage me. And I was focusing a lot on trying to just get my headspace as positive around this whole thing as possible, because I was like, if I can get my mindset right and I can get, that's basically the key to this whole thing. Because even if I'm not feeling that great, if my mindset is good, then I can still get some sort of meaning out of this whole thing. And I'm not a religious person, or I would say a particularly spiritual person, but I also looked at this whole thing and I was like, if I can figure out a way to read meaning into this. And for me, that was like looking at this as being part of my life plan while I'm on this earth. Was like, and there's something bigger happening, and it just, I was like, if I can actually believe that, and I guess, like, yeah. So like, what worked for me was to look at it as this is a part of my journey here, and I'm here to learn something out of this whole thing. And that just made everything a lot easier. And so we went from there, like slowly. It was a very like slow process. At first, I could, like I was busy crawling to the bathroom at night because my kidneys were like quite, they'd taken a lot of damage. So I needed to pee about 4 times or so in the evening, and to get out of bed was this excruciating pain. I remember I'd wake up needing to go to the loo, and I'd just be like, oh no, and I'd have to like slide off the bed, and I'm crawling hands and knees to the bathroom, like, backwards to the bathroom to try and make it to the loo. Excruciating pain. I could like absolutely understand why people would get addicted to pain meds in this case, because I was like, at least when you take one, it turns us off for a little while, it was a slow process. It was like day by day, I felt myself getting a bit stronger. I mean, I could eventually make it to the shops. Well, actually, no, I wasn't at the shops at that point, but I could do a little bit more. I remember eventually getting in the car and going for my first drive. And then the whole family was like, listen, you shouldn't be in the driving. I'm like, I'm sure I'm fine. And I got in the car, and it was just this feeling of absolute like amazing. I was like, wow, like I actually feel like I've got a little bit of my life back, and it was a little like small steps like that. Eventually I managed to make it back after some months to go to get back into to go for a surf again. And I couldn't surf properly. I could get up on my knees on the board, but it was probably the best surf of my life, was just being able to make it into the water and go like, like I've got a few more days in me, like this isn't, it's not the end yet. And so on and so forth. And so I've been in treatment now for 7 months since my original diagnosis. And at the moment, like I'm technically in remission. It's a bit of an interesting thing with myeloma, because unfortunately you don't finish your treatment and that's it. You kind of, you are potentially on treatment for life with this stuff. Unless they find a cure or so. There's also like an argument to be made that you can eventually be off treatment, but you're on treatment consistently. I mean, I was going in once a week I've only just gone off once a week cycles, and I'm now on to once every 2 weeks, where I go into to the oncology unit that I go to now. Yeah, so like I'm now in remission, or no, I have no measurable disease. That mother cell is still hanging around there, and I'm doing absolutely everything in my power to keep in remission. So what that means for me is like I just did some sort of like reading on stuff like diet and exercise and sleep and cold water and anything I could find, which I thought I can do this, and this will help me to be stronger so that I can fight this thing better. I try to do as much as I can around there. And that's where I am at the moment, and I guess, like long may it last. With this thing, your remission might be, you could be unfortunate enough that your remission is months, or your remission could be years. It could be a decade. So at the moment I take it day by day. I'm like, I do my very best to be grateful for each moment. I mean, like I think we're all human. That doesn't happen all the time. But I definitely am very grateful to have had it a little bit longer. Like I mentioned, my dad, he didn't have a chance to stand up and fight that thing. Like he got his diagnosis after his death, not before. And I'm very grateful here that I've got a few more years to, and hopefully a little bit more than that. But that I've got a little more time here, and that's my story.
And what a story it is! Oh my word! And you're still smiling, which is fantastic. Um, Alistair, I've got to
Yes.
ask you, one of the worst days that you've had. Explain that to me, and what did you do to kind of get yourself out of that rut? Because you did mention earlier that you are quite a positive person, but you're also human. So obviously you had 1 or 2 days where you doubted your prognosis, you doubted what you were going through, and what advice would you give to someone when they are in that dark time during their journey?
Yeah, so I think for me, probably the worst was there was a day right after, well, there was a couple of days, but it was like right after I got out of hospital, I was extremely weak. And I was, I remember looking at, my body also went like just disappeared. Like my muscles just went away. I was this skin and bone, and so my posture had gone to shit because of my, and still has actually because of the spinal. Uh, and I just remember looking at all of this, going like, like I've gone from being this like really fit and active person to just, to like having my body wrecked and not being able to go into work and not being able to do the things that I really enjoyed. And like I remember the one day I needed to go into work to just like do some essential things, and I was just at the end of that day I was lying in bed, the room was spinning. On that day I said to my sister, because I didn't have a will in place, I said, just bring that will so I can sign this thing, because I think that this is potentially, like this might be it. And like we like and I actually like I think the advice was, I got some really good advice from my sister, which was just focus on the small wins. And there was just like a little small, there was just like this, there was tiny things there. So like, you wake up the next day, and instead of walking 5 meters, you walk 6. And I was like, that just to be able to focus on like something like that, also to be able to go like, listen, like I'm still here. Like I've been given this amazing gift of having a little bit more time on this planet, and I just focus on like, it might not be ideal, and I might be feeling like shit, but I'm still get to experience this, and I still have to have these relationships with people who mean to me, and have these experiences that when we're dead, we're not going to have them anymore. We're going to have a different, who knows what that is? We're going to have a different one then. But while we're here, it's just to be able to, and I think that would basically be the big thing for me, is that if you can just find something to be a little grateful about, or a small thing to be a lot grateful about, it makes a huge difference. And, it's almost like once you focus on a lot of uh, that of things that you can be grateful for, it's like, it has a great positive effect on life.
That's incredible. I couldn't say it better, even if I tried. And I'm the eternal optimist. I'm the one that always wakes up and, okay, I know the day's really crappy, but we're gonna make it work. And it's not always possible. But what I like is what you said about find one. Small thing to be very grateful about, and I think that's a good word of advice. Um, is there anything that you learned about yourself through this journey that you look back now and you think, wow, okay, this is a good thing that I learned about myself?
Yeah, yes, like a lot. I feel like this whole journey has been it's its own thing, and it can be, if you can take the good out of it, it can actually be a really, like, it's difficult to explain, but it can be a really wonderful experience in some ways, like so some of it is just this being taken to, like almost to the edge of existence, and then coming back from that is fantastic. It's like, well, we've got a little bit more time here. um so and I think also, like, in this whole thing, I saw that like, hell, man, like I'm actually quite resilient, and like I've got this like really I've been very blessed with a very positive mindset, and in really tough times like this, I was able to like really pull on that and use that as a sort of way to deal with the really with this news that I really didn't want, and try and find a way to turn it, like you gotta be a little bit like a ninja on this thing, and try find a way to turn a really bad situation into something positive, because all of it is about how you think about the situation. So if you can change the way you think about it, then you can make a bad situation a good situation. Like I don't think that any situation is necessarily bad or good. It's just what we think about it.
Yes, absolutely. I was actually busy typing quickly. Ronald, sorry to interrupt, Alistair. Ronald, the volume is very good on our side, so I think it might be your device volume that you need to turn up. Alistair, thank you for that. I really appreciate all your insights. One final question from me, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the guests if they want to ask you a couple of questions. But um, we hear a lot about if you go for tests and prevention is better than cure, and early detection saves lives and all that type of stuff, and we talk about that quite often on these sessions. So the question I want to ask you is, obviously your type of cancer that you've got is different to other types, but was there early signs that you saw, and do you think it would have made any difference whatsoever if you went for tests earlier? I'm a very
Yeah,
stubborn person, so I would walk around with a sore leg for 5 months before going to a doctor, and then that could potentially mean that there's something else wrong. Did you have any of this?
yes. So, and that is actually, if I look back retrospectively on this, I wish that I'd looked into early detection more, because if I'd got this earlier, I wouldn't have all of these spinal fractures. And these spinal fractures are a bastard to live with. Get a lot of pain. They limit your, it's just very limiting, and also it's not great to have a posture that's compromised. And then along with that is bones bones which break a little bit more easily and such. On top of that, if I'd gotten early detection, you can actually figure out a way to treat this without having to do all sorts of radical medication that I'm on at the moment. Or you can at least have time to try. It's not to say that that'll 100% work, but at least you can give it your best go first. So it's much better to, if you can find a way to, like, my main thing was I just never thought it was cancer, and I didn't want to think it was cancer. I was just like, I would never be me, I'd never get cancer. And if I had at least gone and knocked on that door a little bit, it would have been a lot better. If I discovered this in 2020, way better than 2022. By the time you get to 2022, I had 90% bone marrow, 90% of my bone marrow was cancer. In 2020, it probably would have been like 20 or so.
But could it have been prevented? I mean, in bone marrow, it's a different demon on its own when it's in your bone marrow. But can something like this be prevented?
Well, so on this particular type of for myeloma starts off on, there's various levels of it. So you get it starts off on something called MGUS, and then it progresses to something called smoldering myeloma, and then it eventually becomes multiple myeloma. Now, if you get it as MGUS, it's still only a blood disorder. It's not actually cancer. It's not classified as cancer. So if you got it as MGUS, and then I live a healthy lifestyle now, but I never used to. I used to, abuse the hell out of my body with all sorts of things that I probably shouldn't have done. Like if I discovered that point, then I could have, looked into things that I could have done to prevent it turning into multiple myeloma, and gone down that road a lot. So there's a lot of like various supplements you can do, lifestyle changes, stress management, cutting out alcohol, whatever it is. But so I would say, in answer to your question, potentially yes, potentially if I had discovered it earlier, I would have it would have stayed as a blood disorder. For a lot of people, that's how it stays. They never even know they have it.
Oh wow. Okay, that's cool. It's one of those cancers that I don't know a lot about, and I just want to say to Cancer Support for thank you for actually adding on the chat what multiple myeloma is, and yeah, just thank you for sharing your journey. I'm going to open it up to the floor. I'm not going to unmute everyone at one time because that could be potential chaos. So if you do have a question for Alistair, please raise your hand. On you'll see there is actions that you can do or reactions. Just raise your hand and then I'll unmute you. Or alternatively, if you don't want to talk online, then you can just type it in the chat. We would love to hear from you if you do have questions. Just giving them a second. Maybe they're slow typers. All right. Okay. Well, let's continue the conversation. Is there anybody on the group that would like to share where they are at the moment? Okay, there we go. David Lucas. David, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Just also switch your camera on if you don't mind, just so we can see you. David, of course, is a long. He's one of those volunteers of cancer that's been around for a long time, and he's also one of the founding members of the support group. Just to give you a bit of context, David, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. Firstly, before I even say hi to Alistair, I need to say hi to Emil and congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you very much.
May you
Really
and Jacques
appreciate
have a good one and long time. And I was my anniversary, 43rd anniversary
Wow.
last month. So hopefully you'll get there too.
Well, hopefully we got married quite late, so that would put us early 90s. Let's hope we are healthy enough to live that long.
That would bring me back to Alistair. Alistair, good evening to you. But I also need to say to you, I really admire what you are doing not for yourself, but for other men. Because sharing with us brings us into a situation where we really appreciate how life is all about. And I must be very honest with myself that what I've gone through is totally minuscule to what most of the other guys have gone through. But I believe that we need to speak about it. We need to be there to be an example for other people. But you cannot deny that there's been a spiritual journey that you've reached without, as you said before, but it has become that. But also, you've talked about those little things which you appreciate every day and make those little things big things. Sir, you are not going to have a few more years. You're going to a decade. You're going to have decades. You're going to be as old as me one day. Don't worry. And you can see there, it's quite gray. I'm gray already. So 66, you'll make it easily. So thank you so much. And keep up the good work. Appreciate it. And I hope we will be able to see you in one of your coffee shops pretty soon.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Alistair, I think you need to share where your coffee shops are so that people can actually come support you and come support your endeavors.
So they're both in Cape Town. One is in St. George's Mall. The coffee shop is called Motherland Coffee.
I've actually had coffee there before. I didn't know it's yours. It's a good experience.
Yeah, I'm just involved in the ones in Cape Town. And then there's another one in Cavendish Square Shopping Centre.
Okay, fantastic. We'll definitely, if we're in Cape Town again, we'll come say how's it. David, thank you so much for always sharing. We've missed you the last couple of sessions. I know you've been busy. I'm not going to blame the age because you wanna say you're 66, but we can't keep up with you. You're so busy. Just thank you for everything that you do as well, and thank you for being here again tonight. It's good to see your face. I have to be honest. We've missed you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to share? Maybe someone that's going through a tough time at the moment. And Alistair, being such a positive guy, maybe he can give you a bit of advice. Mortimer, okay, perfect. Mortimer, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. There we go. Mortimer, this is your first time on the support group as well, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening to everybody. Yes, I can tell you this just for being on the WhatsApp group. I only came onto the group about last week. And just by chatting to the guys, that sort of gave me an upliftment and it gave me a lot of peace. I've listened to Alistair and I must say thank you very much, my friend. Every time I used to get sick because I've got prostate cancer, I would go to the doctor and they would just say, oh, you got an infection, you got an infection, you got an infection. And that went on for years. But then you see something that clicked in my mind. In the year 2000, I ended up in Christian Barnard Hospital because of a chest infection. And then I was told that I'm an asthmatic. But whilst there, I think they must have picked up something in my urine. So they sent me to a urologist and they did the prostate exam. And the doctor said to me, then you have to have this sorted out, Mr. Julius, because something isn't right here. We picked it up. It's very small, but I haven't attended to. But you know, when the ego sets in, if it's not all that important, I'm not going to worry. Until 2022. And that Saturday, I couldn't move. And then my wife took me to another doctor. And that doctor gave me one look, made me urinate, and wrote out a letter and in contact the urologist. Ended up being there, they did the scans, and then that was the outcome of it. Last year, September, I had my surgery also at Christian Barnard. I did this new robotic surgery. So I'm sort of a year now, and I'm going through my post-op period where I have to go over the scans, I had to go for nuclear meds thingy that they do, all that scan, almost like the MRI type of thing. And now they discovered I have to do on Monday, I had another scan which they call mapping. So it's a 10-15 day waiting period now, and then I'll be doing external radiation treatment to remove some of the other cells that is there that they couldn't detect in the first place, which through MRI nuclear, they could detect it now. So I would start my first treatment as of around about the 15th, 16th of November for 7 weeks, 5 days a week. So yeah, I know what it is to be in a down spot, but speaking to the guys and having the support of my family, that to me is upliftment. I'm at peace. Yeah, sometimes, oh yes, and I'm on this hormonal treatment that again I have to go for the injection, and that sort of, I tell you, I was sort of anti that thing, because I thought to myself, why must I now get hormone injections? Hell, I'm 62 years old. What do they expect me to do? I'm not interested in getting freaky now. But yeah, I understand that we sort of played with my emotions. When I received it, I couldn't sleep. I started feeling this dryness in my mouth. Then it's hot and cold, and now I want to laugh, and then I want to cry, and then I'm angry, all that emotional. But the doctors warned me about it until it sort of takes effect in my system, and then it will slide down to a bit of a normal situation. Well, I wonder when that would be, because I'm still sweating as I'm sitting here. But it's all good. I can accept that, because Yes, sometimes I'm down, but I've got a purpose because I've got 3 grandchildren. I've got a lovely wife. I've got 2 daughters. I've got 2 sons-in-law, you know, and we together in it. It's not just me standing alone on an island. And I have you guys to chat to. And I must
Yes.
thank you. I must thank you for that. So that's my little bit of a background on this.
Thank you for sharing, Mortimer. This is why I think we started the support group. It started obviously with the WhatsApp group, and we have had so many people join that we are able to give that support to. And you're going to have the positive people, and you're going to have the very negative people. And it's important that we realize that there's a space for everyone, and everyone's journey is so vastly different. And the fact that we can support in this way, and it's people supporting people going through a similar journey, which I think is so vitally important, and that's what makes a difference. Alistair, do you want to add something?
No. I think I'm good.
Awesome. Just thank you for sharing, Mortimer. This is why we're here. Chris Naidu, Alistair, this is a question for you. What percentage of your own research did you trust and follow as opposed to placing all your trust on your chosen oncologist? I think that's a question that a lot of people, especially if they just get the diagnosis, obviously ask, because you don't want to just you want to doubt your prognosis. I think sometimes.
Yes. I think with this one, I actually it's a yeah, that's an interesting question. Like I I did and I do feel a lot of trust with my oncologist and what he and most of what he had suggested. Hematologists are apparently notorious for over medicating their patients, so they like to give you like a lot of meds to knock that cancer into touch. And I feel like it's a bit of a balancing line between having enough meds to take out your cancer, but you don't want to take yourself out at the same time. So, as an example, there's a process which is recommended in this for myeloma, which is a standard of care where you have an autologous stem cell transplant. And I was fairly clear that I didn't want to do that stem. Not to say I would definitely not want to do it, but I was like, I don't like, if I can avoid doing it, I will, even though my oncologist recommended to do that. Just because I looked at that and I was like, hey man, that thing is, you're basically putting mustard gas directly into your veins and taking yourself to the brink of death with this thing. And I was like, that sounds like a bad idea. So with that sort of thing, like I say, like if it was my only option, I would do it. But there was some stuff where I just kind of like, I just looked at what the sort of I guess the impact on my body would be to take this medication and what the benefit seemed to be. So I would say I would trust my oncologist for most of the stuff, but ultimately I also want to take responsibility for my own health, and I choose on what goes into my body. Ultimately, I choose what goes in there or not. So at some point, there's some other things that he's recommending. I will like if all things goes well, I will remove those as well, and slowly start to remove other types of medication, which is not to say that would work for everyone. It's just that was more what I thought would work for me. So I think it's a bit of a difficult one as well, because we're not doctors over here. You speak to the oncologist, the all-knowing oncologist who seems to. So I think it's very important also to find somebody who, like, you can really feel that, like, this guy knows what he's talking about, and you can trust what he's going to say, and then you can choose whether to go with what he says or no. So because I guess at the end of the day, we are basically what do you could look at it almost as being like the CEO of your own health. So you've got various people that you can consult with, but you get to make the final decision on what to do. Yeah.
I love your analogies, I've got to be honest. Your analogies are superb. I think you must write a book. I want to add to that. The other night we got invited, one of my very good friends, Liesl Tom, she's one of the top 50 life coaches and transformational coaches in the world. And she was doing a talk on the three different brains that you have. You've got the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And she actually comes with scientific proof on this, where you've got neurons in your brain, obviously telling your body, feeding information and back and forth. But they've proven that the heart and the gut also has neurons, not as much as the brain, but neurons telling the brain and the body various informations as well. And basically what that came down to is that when you get a gut feeling, you've got to listen to it. But I want to add on to that, that we've got to be careful of things like Google and where you do your research, because there's also a lot of false information and a lot of people posting blogs and vlogs on what they think is right, but that could be detrimental to your journey. Your journey is completely different to everyone else's, and you might have the same cancer, but it doesn't mean that your journey or your diagnosis is going to be exactly the same, or the medication or the course of treatment is going to be the same as someone else. So my advice would be listen, use your gut brain and maybe your heart brain over your head brain, and go to the people that have studied, that have the knowledge to give you the advice that you need to. But if you feel that that's not what you want to hear, or that's not the right advice, especially when it comes to medications and stuff, like Alistair said, you are the CEO of your own body, and I love that. I really do love that. But then rather go for a second and a third opinion with other oncologists. These are people that have studied very long and hard to be able to give you the advice that they feel would be good for you. Would you agree with that, Alistair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was first diagnosed, I've got some friends who are into all natural treatment, and they were very much tooting the horn of, like go and get ozone or whatever it was, broccoli juice or whatever it was that they were
And go smoke your
talking about.
doobie. Yeah.
And I, yeah. And I was like, this is, like I guess with cancer, you've got, it's a high stakes game. And if you want to have the best qualified people that you can find advising you on that, because like if you have people who are like, and I know exactly what you mean. Like some of the information you get is like, where they're recommending you do something that's going to cure you. You're like, if it was that easy, no one here would have it. If it was just a matter of me drinking this one potion, none of us would be sitting here. So it's a very complicated disease, and I think you need to be very careful on exactly that, on where you force your information and who you listen to.
Case in point, if you go onto, I think it's a group called Buddha Rat on Facebook, you'd be shocked what advice people give there. People would come in and ask what can I do to do this, and then you go read the advice that people put there, like drink a Disprin, go for a massage. It's some of the advice is really ridiculous. Bobby Ware is over here. He's also a cancer survivor, but also part of the cancer team. So, Bobby, I'm unmuting you. You can just unmute there. What would you like to add? And it's awesome to see you, sir.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you very much. You know what? Each of us are uniquely made. And honestly, what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you.
Yes.
And it's something that I have often spoken about. And I see in the ward as well with the kids. What works for the one, the same cancer, but different treatments.
I want to actually ask you while you're online, because I agree with you always. I mean, you've gone through your own journey that we've shared quite a couple of times, and it's always inspirational to hear you. But I know that the cancer support did answer now, but because you've worked with cancer so long, and you work with kids, and you also work with a lot of people, I suppose, that aren't on medical aids. Arthur is asking, and you're now talking about people that have medical aids to go to private doctors, which is a lot of people can't afford. Is there any advice that you can give there?
Yeah, at the public, obviously, I'm at the public hospital.
Yes.
Um, but and I can only speak for our area, Polokwane. We have several oncologists.
Bobby, have we lost you?
I'm here. I'm here. You
Oh,
got me?
oh, there you are. Okay, sorry. For a
Okay.
second there, it
Yeah.
looked as though we lost you.
But they're open to chat, and you're the patient. You can ask the questions. Write your questions down before you get there, and then say to your oncologist when you get there, these are questions that I've got that I'd like answers on. And I found that every time I've gone and sat with a patient, with a doctor, they're more than willing to go back and explain again and again. It is difficult because they're under tremendous pressure to get through all the patients that they have to get through. That is a fact of life. But yeah, you know what? You're not part of the mill. You're an individual, and you have your right to ask your questions and to take that time.
I want to add to that. I know that a lot of our public hospitals have some of the best oncologists and the best specialists. The biggest problem is the amount of people, like what Bobby said now. And I really feel for people that don't have medical aid, because medical aids are expensive. This is a reality that people face on a daily basis. And I mean, even if you have a medical aid, it's not guaranteed that they're going to cover everything, because of the specialists charging a fortune. And Arthur, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. But like what Bobby said, and I know, Bobby, you're only talking for your area, but the fact of the matter is that it's difficult. Arthur, you're saying here that you called Tigerberg to talk to a doctor there, and the problem is these people are under immense pressure. Not coming up for them, but I do know that they have a lot on their plates. And some of these guys work very, very long hours, and I don't actually know what to tell you, except to keep trying, I suppose, and not to give up, because it's a tough journey that you are going through. Anybody else that wants to share? We've got about 5 more minutes left of tonight's meeting, and while I'm waiting for someone to if they want to share, on the 21st of November we are hosting a webinar for prostate cancer, and that's open to anyone that would want to join. I've posted the invitation over there. Unfortunately for this one, you would have to register, but please feel free to download and to share with anyone if they want to go. Even though it's about prostate cancer, there's a lot of advice that actually gets shared at these webinars, because you've got specialists that's normally on there. So please feel free to join. I just want to scroll down quickly. Chris. Chris Nadu says, I research trusted medical websites, and armed with available knowledge, I posed my concerns to two family doctors, and when I was approached by cardio thoracic surgeon who wanted to operate by cutting out the affected pain on my lower lobe of my left lung, I asked if it was curative or palliative, to which he replied neither. That was my decision then to stop surgery. Yeah, I mean, what kind of answer is neither? That doesn't really answer. But in that case, that's where I would recommend that a person would go for a second or a third opinion. I think if you go for 4 or 5 opinions and all the opinions are exactly the same, then a person would probably need to start listening. If you go to 3 different opinions and every opinion is different, then go for a fourth one. Like what Arthur said, you are the CEO of your own body. So people can give you advice, but you ultimately are the one making the decisions. Always remember that. All right. Anybody else that wants to share? It doesn't seem that way. Alistair, I just want to say thank you very much for joining tonight. And it's really, really incredible to have someone on here like yourself sharing your journey. And I think it's very important that we all share our journeys. And even if it means your diagnosis is very negative, it's also important to share your journey because you will help someone along the way. And that's what people are here for, is to be able to be helped and get that support that we need. Anything closing from you, Alistair?
No, just thanks for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. Okay, please keep an eye on social media for the next date. Hopefully, we can have it very soon. It's very important to please also follow the WhatsApp group. A lot of times we can't have these events because we can't find someone that's willing to share their journey. And I suppose it gets a bit boring just listening to me the whole time. So if you feel you want to share your journey, please reach out to Gretchen Minnar. She's on the she's one of us, one of our guys. She's just incredible, and this was her brainchild. So please reach out to her and say you would want to share your journey, and then she'll make a time with you, and then we can possibly have you on the next meeting. Thank you very much, and also. Alistair, for sharing once again. Please have a great evening. Hope to see you guys soon, and keep supporting each other. That's what this is about, and that's what's important. So see you soon. Have a great evening, and normally I would say drive safely, but we're all in the comfort of our own homes, so sleep safely, I suppose. Bye bye.
Right. Thank you. Bye.